This is CBC Vancouver News.
Jail time for a BC man who gave a 14-year-old boy a deadly dose of drugs at a Langley skate park.
We'll never be the same again without him.
We would have liked 2 years incarceration.
Other teenagers videoed what happened and posted it online. And Vancouver police make raids and arrests against the drug user Liberation Front.
This group was knowingly illegally trafficking in drugs.
But the group says it's trying to save lives with a tested supply.
I know a bunch of people who relied on that who are now going to have to go to the street supply.
Plus, don't pitch your tent yet.
Young, old, rich, poor, developers, conservationists, all walks lead to a tentless park.
Plans to allow camping on Bowen Island are once again up in the air. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Janella Hamilton. A former drug dealer has been sentenced to jail time in the overdose death of 14-year-old Carson Cremini. The teen died in 2019 in a case that was as high profile as it was tragic. And as Michelle Gassoub reports, it's not the outcome the victim's family had hoped for.
The man who sold Carson Cremini the drugs that killed him will serve 18 months in jail for manslaughter. He can't be named because he was also a minor when he sold 14-year-old Cremini 10 grams of MDMA in 2019. It was in this Langley skate park that Cremini consumed the drugs and began to overdose. Other teens at the park filmed what was happening and posted the videos online.
We'll never be the same again without him, right? So, I mean, what he took away from us can't be measured.
The young man who sold the drugs pled guilty to manslaughter. He was found responsible for Cremini's death because he misled him about just how much he had sold and did nothing once the teen was in crisis.
I'm very emotional, to be honest. The sentence to me, we would have liked 2 years incarceration, 18 months. That's close. I think it's much bigger than that.
The case, one of the first in BC where a drug dealer was found guilty for an overdose death.
We hope that he's a symbol to future kids who end up witnessing a similar situation or witnessing another person in trouble, to be a reminder that you should speak up, you should phone for help.
The judge in this case described it as a 21st century Lord of the Flies, with young people standing by but not doing anything to intervene. She said the family had been consumed by a black hole of grief. They said Carson was a kid who craved friendship and belonging above all else. There are no winners in this case, said the judge in her sentence, but hopefully some painful lessons. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, New Westminster.
Police say it will be several months before we know what caused the massive fire that destroyed a Port Coquitlam school. Hazel Trembath Elementary burned to the ground almost 2 weeks ago. Authorities have deemed it suspicious, but the RCMP says they still don't have any suspects.
Investigators have collected 200 hours of surveillance video, conducted hundreds of witness statements, and followed up on numerous tips from the community.
Police are asking any witnesses to contact them. The roughly 250 displaced students have been moved to another facility. Vancouver police have raided the office of a drug activist group. Investigators seized drugs and arrested 2 people. But as John Hernandez reports, the group says the substances were tested and meant for users in need.
This group was knowingly illegally trafficking in drugs. As a result, we took action to stop it.
The investigation had been ongoing since September. Vancouver police targeting the Drug User Liberation Front office at this East Hastings intersection where drugs were made available to dozens of users.
While DOLF's actions were intended to reduce the harms caused by the toxic, illicit drug supply, we have always warned that anyone who violates the Criminal Code or the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act should expect to face enforcement and criminal charges.
2 East Vancouver homes were also raided, 2 people arrested, and drugs seized.
There's substances that we believe are heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamine.
The group, commonly known as DULF, has operated in the community for 3 years, distributing drugs allegedly bought from the dark web to about 50 users in need.
We started the Drug User Liberation Front because nobody else was coming to save us, so we knew we had to do something ourselves.
Garth Mullins, one of the group's co-founders, said they tried to get Health Canada approval to operate, but were denied. Still, they did receive a $200,000 grant from Vancouver Coastal Health to test their drugs.
I know a bunch of people who relied on that who are now going to have to go to the street supply. Not a tested, clean supply of drugs. They're going to have to go and take their chances with fentanyl off the street.
Supporting organized crime is not life-saving work.
In the legislature, the opposition leader questioned whether provincial funds were used to buy illicit drugs, a charge denied by the public safety minister.
Once government became aware that of the situation, the contract was immediately canceled. Their contract was for drug testing, not for the purchase of illicit drugs.
While BC's premier hopes the raid sends a message to other groups operating illegally.
Even though they were doing that important life-saving work, they were also breaking the law, and we can't have it.
A police raid amid a toxic drug crisis that's claimed more than 1,400 lives this year. No charges have been laid, at least not yet. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
Police say a body found at the scene of an explosion in Langley earlier this week was not a victim of murder. Neighbors reported a loud blast on Tuesday at a home on 8th Avenue near 240th Street. After crews put out the fire, they found human remains and called in the Integrated Homicide Investigation Team. Now the case has been passed back to the Langley RCMP Serious Crimes Unit, who will try to figure out what led to the explosion. After a month-long freeze of Indian visas for Canadian citizens, some visa services have resumed. Visas for entry, business, medical purposes, and conferences will be issued. That announcement led to long lineups outside visa offices in BC.
So it took us around 4.5 hours for the overall process. Yeah, it's kind of a pain for the people, but it's all about politics and stuff.
It's really very hassle for all the people who's waiting for a long time, and this cold weather, and it's freaking very cold, and we are suffering. We are the mango people, and we are the one who's suffering. I think it's the government who has to take care of their diplomatic relationship, but I don't know why we mango people have to suffer all this.
It's still not clear if and when tourist visas will be available for Canadians. India suspended visa processing after Prime Minister Justin Trudeau alleged the Indian government may have been involved in the killing of a pro-Khalistan activist in Surrey. The BC government has joined forces with the BC Parks Foundation in setting aside $300 million to conserve and protect forests.
This conservation finance mechanism is how we will work together, First Nations, provincial government, the private sector, to protect the beauty of this province for generations to come.
The fund aims to save old-growth forest and Indigenous protected and conserved areas while offering sustainable economic alternatives for people working in forestry. Metro Vancouver's plans to bring camping to Bowen Island is going slower than a lineup at Horseshoe Bay. While they may have the land, they don't seem to have the buy-in from Islanders. As Justin McElroy explains, recent updates to Metro's board doesn't give much hope to those eager to pitch their tent.
Metro Vancouver paid $40 million to create a park and campground on Bowen Island, but it's an increasing question whether it will actually happen.
No issue has united the citizens of Bowen as this proposal has for overnight camping at Cape Roger. Young, old, rich, poor, developers, conservationists, all walks lead to a tentless park.
That was last week at a Metro Vancouver Regional Parks meeting. Bowen Island Council has raised additional demands before they agreed to the necessary rezoning to let it happen. So has the island's trust. Now, there are lots of issues, but the biggest sticking point is whether overnight camping will be allowed. And as Bowen's mayor warned Metro Vancouver, residents aren't happy that it's still on the table even after consultations.
When I put myself in the mind of the local residents, has me wondering, they might feel that they were engaged in more of a public relations exercise as opposed to an actual engagement exercise.
Now, sometimes the loudest people don't represent the majority, but not in this case. Here is a chart. Metro Vancouver surveyed about 1,000 people this summer about the park. Half lived on Bowen and half lived in the rest of the region. 73% of people off the island supported the draft plan, but on Bowen it was just 33%. There's a clear divide here with no obvious solution that satisfies everyone. The only thing for sure right now is that Metro Vancouver taxpayers are paying for a big $40 million question mark. Justin McElroy, CBC News, Vancouver.
A BC teen is being honored with a Good Samaritan award after he saved his grandfather on a hunting trip gone wrong.
I can't really remember, it just kind of all happened. I don't know, it's just instincts. Do what you gotta do, and then it all worked out.
Last November, Carter and John Burkhard were hunting in Lake Cowichan when the 68-year-old man became pinned under their quad bike, breaking his back. Carter called for help using his GPS and communicated with a medical dispatcher via text to get John out from under the vehicle.
He was just so incredible. He was so brave. He provided all the information we needed. His willingness to help, his own fortitude to set up a landing zone, and just he did everything right, and he saved his grandpa's life.
First responders are asking anyone going into the backcountry to take an emergency contact device with them. Ice skaters from around the world will be in Vancouver this weekend competing in the invitation-only Skate Canada International. Canadian figure skating pair Piper Gillis and Paul Poirier have had to contend with more than the regular grueling training schedule. Last January, Gillis was forced to take a break from competitions while recovering from surgery, and in May, she shared she was undergoing treatment for stage 1 ovarian cancer. But today, they were back on the ice practicing their routine.
I feel so much better. I mean, obviously, there's still things that I have to do to monitor. I mean, that's just part of my life now, and I think what you have to do is you have to embrace it. You know, I could sit there and be like, oh man, this never ends, but I think that's just part of life. You have to kind of keep looking forward.
The pair won gold at Skate Canada in October last year and went on to win 2 more competitions before Gillis took her medical leave, only to come back in March with a win of bronze at the World Championships in Japan. They are looking forward to showcasing their new routine at the Doug Mitchell Thunderbird Sports Center at UBC. A Chilliwack man placed second in the Backyard Ultra in Tennessee on Wednesday. It's considered one of the toughest marathons in the world. Ehro ran about 715 kilometers in 107 hours. His friend Nick Jarvis tells us why it's such an intriguing race.
Backyard Ultras are sort of like this increasingly popular niche of ultra running, really, sort of a last person standing event. So the majority of these Backyard Ultras, they take place on a looped course. Each loop is approximately 6.7 kilometers. The reason for that is that after 24 hours, each runner would have completed 100 miles. And the interesting thing about the looped course is they're expected to finish each loop in an hour. Once they finish, they have to wait to start the next loop on the hour. So you can't finish one loop and then start the next one early. You have to wait for everybody to start on the hour together. So that brings up some interesting strategic aspects of how you want to time your rests. You know, do you want to finish the loop early and have a bit more rest time? Do you want to finish it a bit later but go at a slower pace? There's a lot of really interesting strategy involved. It doesn't necessarily favor the fastest runners. It favors whoever has that real endurance and strong mind and willpower. Let's say, for example, so Ehro, he's finishing each loop in maybe around 51, 52 minutes. So that gives him maybe 7 to 8 minutes to maybe quickly shut his eyes, catch a few minutes sleep before he gets back out there. And, you know, he's hoping that that maybe accumulates to some rest throughout the how many ever days they've been out there, I guess since Saturday. To each their own with the recovery, but I would expect Ehro to, I don't think he's going to be able to do much for at least a week. He'll definitely have some brain fog. I think it'll probably be, you know, at least a month before he's feeling like himself again.
Counting fish can be a mind-numbing task, but important if you work at a hatchery. After the break, we'll tell you how AI is stepping in to help get the job done. Thank you for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. A new survey suggests Canadians who work from home spend nearly twice as much time sitting compared to those who work at an office. Not taking breaks has been shown to be bad for workers' long-term health. Tashana Reed looks at what is working to help keep employees moving.
For Laura Meadows, returning to the office has its benefits.
I've definitely seen an uptick in how much I've been able to exercise.
She walks 2 hours at this treadmill desk, and during lunch breaks, takes a walk outside.
It's been amazing to just feel like better energy levels, better mood, better productivity, clearer minds.
A new national survey suggests where you work may impact your level of physical activity. The online survey of more than 1,000 employees found that fully remote workers spent, on average, 6.2 hours out of an 8-hour workday sitting. For full-time office workers, that number is almost cut in half.
With many of us working still remotely or a hybrid model, we have lost those additional opportunities to kind of get active and socialize at the same time.
Opportunities for light exercise, like walking during a daily commute or going for coffee. And new data from Statistics Canada says during the pandemic, Canadian adults spent more hours in front of screens during their workday, from 2 hours or less in 2018 to more than 4 hours in 2021.
The large majority of adults in Canada are not meeting national physical activity guidelines, which definitely puts them at risk for a number of health consequences.
Go and exercise.
But health experts say even small changes can make a difference. Like spending a few minutes every hour stretching and standing, or spacing out meetings.
Have a 15-minute gap. That way you can go for a quick walk, or you can be just doing something else besides staring at the computer.
Another tip to motivate employees, group exercise challenges.
I'll be going around my kitchen island just to get those extra 1,000 steps I need to get into the top spot.
And no matter where you work, taking steps to be more active has positive benefits. Tashana Reed, CBC News, Toronto.
The Helsik First Nation and Wild Salmon Centre have teamed up to pioneer new technology that uses artificial intelligence to count BC salmon return in real time. Take a look.
The AI comes in the form of tracking and identifying every fish that swims past our video camera. So essentially, the AI is fulfilling the role that a technician would otherwise fill, spending oftentimes 4 or 5 months reviewing the video before we have a final count. And yeah, the weir is a fence in the river, so it essentially forces the fish to swim through our 2 video shoots. And those video shoots are recording continuous video, as I mentioned. So we get a video of every fish that swims into the river.
This is going to increase the efficiency and quality in the data collection, and really will just allow us to make better decisions and have stronger governance when it comes to managing sockeye systems in our territory. And it's really an extension of title and rights over the ability to manage salmon systems, and allows us to develop management plans that we can are based on real data and with a very low confidence of error. And so it's a great fit for us.
We're working with Pacific Salmon Foundation and 9 other First Nations across the BC coast, and we're actually going to be applying this technology at a variety of different project sites. And so the hope is that in the next couple of years, we'll be generating real-time count information at First Nation-run weirs up and down the coast.
And here we have a beautiful look at the sunset this evening from Long Beach Lodge in Tofino. Darius will be with us with our full forecast coming up next.
I'm about to go into this haunted house and I'm really freaked out. But that got me thinking, why is so much about Halloween so scary? From the time of year to trick-or-treating to costumes, all of their origins have to do with something pretty freaky, the dead. Let's head inside to find out more. Okay. Halloween's deathly origins have roots in many different cultures and places. There are many festivals, celebration, and days that recognize the dead all over the world. They're often seen as a time where the spirit world and the world of the living overlap. Scary, right? But one big question I had about Halloween is, how come it's at the end of October? Various ancient pagan cultures marked this time of year with festivals and celebrations. It was a time when crops and plants were dying, the seasons were changing, and harvests were happening. Imagine doing this at night. For example, some ancient Celts in Ireland and Scotland believed this was a time of year where dead spirits would come back and roam the land of the living. Some even believed their dead relatives would come visit their homes. Okie dokie. Andale. When Christianity came along, some experts believe they wanted to replace the pagan festivals with Christian ones. Around the 7th century, the Pope created a holiday season called All Hallows Tide around the same time of year. Whoa, these lasers are so trippy. It was a 3-day holiday meant to celebrate saints and the souls of the recently dead. Hallow is an Old English word for holy or saints, and November 1st was All Saints' Day, or All Hallows' Day. So the day before All Hallows' Day was called All Hallows' Eve, which became Halloween. Bottom line, both the pagan festival and Christian holiday had a big focus on the dead. And what's it dressing up in costumes? How does that tie into spirits and the dead? Well, there's some evidence that those ancient Celtic festivals involved dressing up to hide from spirits visiting the living world. And of course, many other cultures include costumes and getting dressed up around their celebrations of the dead. One example is in Scotland and England around the 16th century. People would dress up to impersonate dead souls, or to protect themselves from them. Does that work? If it does, I'm kind of wishing I had a costume right now to protect me from this. Okay, I think I've spent enough time with the dead. Time to get back to the land of the living for some fun trick-or-treating. Happy Halloween, or All Hallows Eve, or whatever you want to call it.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell. Here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. With the changes to how Canada is able to access journalism online and on social media, we want to assure you that when you're looking for CBC News, you'll always be able to find us. Wherever you are in BC, local news, breaking stories, and the latest from around the world is at your fingertips any time of the day with the free CBC News app and online at cbcnews.ca. Download the CBC News app and stay connected wherever you are.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
All right, it is time now to take a look at our full forecast with Darius Madavi. Now, Darius, I have to say, I was not expecting that little frost feeling when I woke up this morning. About 9 o'clock, I headed outside, and holy moly, was it crispy.
It was definitely chilly, and that is going to be sticking around because we have come a little bit closer to seasonal with our highs, at least here on the coast. Still not quite there, but closer to it. But our lows are still very chilly. Yesterday, we definitely hit 0. Expect that again tonight before lows start to come up a little bit again in the days ahead, but not going to last too long. So expect the chilliness to stick around for a while. That being said, it's really just chill, other than a little bit of snow that we just saw here coming into the southeast tonight. Other than that, we're looking pretty much clear across the province until Sunday morning when we see some clouds start to build into the north. But other than that, we have a ridge of high pressure keeping us cold, but also dry and pretty much clear across BC. Now, if we look over the next 48 hours, all we see is that bit of snow build up in the north, this is actually the last 24 hours and the next 24 hours, because if I showed you the next 48 hours, the second day there would show you absolutely nothing, because there's nothing happening in the province. So we see this amount of snow build up between yesterday and tomorrow, or today and tomorrow, and then that's really all we have happening in the province. That being said, chilly still. So the cold air mass that we had move in from the Arctic starting to move out of the province, so we aren't going to see too many more days of chilly temperatures. They are starting to come back up, and so by the time we hit Halloween, we should be back around seasonal, meaning for the highs at least, meaning if you do some earlier trick-or-treating, you'll probably be okay. You won't have to have too heavy a jacket covering your entire costume, because that is the worst. That being said, nothing but sun in the forecast tomorrow, where we do have cloud. That's going to clear out pretty quickly, but again, we just have that chill in the air, but hopefully like today, the sun will even that out a little bit. And looking ahead, nothing but sun in the forecast, and temperatures do start to climb back up eventually.
A little weird seeing those single digits like that, Darius, but thank you so much for breaking all that down for us.
Thanks, Janella.
A Prince George couple has gone all out this Halloween with their decorations. Between full-time jobs and raising 3 kids, they've managed to turn their front yard into a ghoul-infested maze and haunted house, complete with actors and animatronics.
We're big horror fans, horror movies, that sort of thing. We just love the faces on the kids and seeing their surprised looks. Even the adults, it's so much fun to scare adults. And
I think it's more entertaining to scare the adults than
definitely.
the kids.
Yeah, and I'm a firm believer that you got to earn your candy. You can't just walk up and say trick or treating, here you go. No, you got to get a little scared too.
We had an incident a few years ago where a young girl came through and she was bawling at the door. So I'm like, we have to change this so the little ones don't have to go through, and then whoever wants to go through, they can go through.
Kids can kind of come up here and check out the graveyard, and then they can come back, and if they want to come through the scary maze, then they're welcome to. But we also do at the first hour of our haunt, all the kids can kind of go through the maze. We're not going to have any actors out or anything turned on unless they want it turned on. So, yeah, I basically start decorating September 1st. I start planning. I start putting stuff together September 1st, and because I work full time as well, so it's tough. Whenever we have a chance, we're plugging away at it. I think it's great. I think we're becoming an influence for sure. I know when we first started decorating, our neighbor across the street here, he kind of started decorating, and he's buying more things, and he bought his first 12-foot skeleton, and then a couple houses down, the same thing. Yeah, it's just been really great. I love that we're kind of influencing the whole neighborhood. We're trying to be the candy cane lane of Halloween. That's kind of what we're looking to do.
And I hear we're going to have a full moon just before Halloween this year, so who knows what'll come out. That is your late news for this Thursday. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. For news anytime, visit our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5:30. Have a great night.